esteemed colleagues sitting on the dais as well as in the audience, ladies and gentlemen, and all my dear friends. We decided to organize a debate on this subject because we found this topic and this issue very burning, and it touched the lives and hearts of our Goans. And we thought that this issue has to be legally thrashed in a debate, and therefore we decided to have this debate. And we have our speakers who have spoken prior to me have also given their views. I have a view on this subject. I am of the considered opinion that mere registration of birth in Portugal will not terminate Indian citizenship. And I'll explain to you how that is why I am of that opinion and what are the propositions I have regarding that. Now I have two propositions. Basically, one is, you see, I feel, or I am of the opinion, that nationality is a status which differs from the status of citizenship. They are not both synonymous. They are antonymous terms. And as per Section 9 of the Citizenship Act of 1955, the Section 9 deals with termination of Indian citizenship. It speaks about acquiring the citizenship of a foreign country voluntarily. So what it speaks about is only the term citizenship, not nationality. So therefore my argument is that if acquiring citizenship leads to termination, we will have to see whether birth registration is acquiring citizenship or nationality. This is my first proposition. Second one is, the Section 9 which deals with, again, termination of citizenship speaks about voluntary nature of this acquirement. So if it is involuntary, if it is due to several other things, I will come to elaborate on this a little later, then if it is held that it is not voluntary, then again we are out of Section 9 which terminates citizenship. Now coming to the first one. Nationality, in my opinion, differs from citizenship. The words both may appear to be similar and synonymous, but actually they are not. Nationality does not have all the benefits or all the rights which citizenship carries. You see, a citizen, to be a citizen, one may have to be a national. But being a national, you may not necessarily be a citizen. You are a citizen. If you are a citizen, you will have your rights, you will have your civil rights, you will have your political rights, which may not be open to nationals. And in 1963, now before coming to the Supreme Court judgment, if you see the order, the citizenship order which terminates or which made all of us, whoever was born in Goa, and even the grandchildren or whoever were deemed to be Indian national, that citizenship order clearly says, what it says is basically, whoever were born in this territory are deemed to be Indian nationals unless they give a written declaration to the administrator that they wish to retain their earlier nationality or citizenship. So from this order itself, it is so apparent that the Indian government made a distinction between nationality and citizenship. If they were not distinct, only the word citizenship would have appeared in that order. So there are two distinct words which are used, and this clearly shows that the central government of India itself recognized the fact that these are two aspects. That there could be somebody who is a national and not a citizen. And therefore they use the words nationals or citizens. In 1963, this distinction came up before the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court also decided this, saying that nationality is in the sphere of international law, and citizenship is something much more than that, where it confers certain political civil rights on its citizens. So therefore, I am of the opinion, now if you take British law, British nationality law, under British nationality law, there are 6 types of nationals. I will not go to all the 6 categories, but there is something called British citizens, and there is again something called British nationals overseas. Now all the British nationals overseas don't have the same rights as British citizens. Again, this clarifies the distinction between both. Now, if you look at it in a practical aspect of this, if I go to Britain and then travel to Portugal with my birth certificate registered in Portugal, that is, and if I tell them that I am your citizen now, I want so and so rights, they are not going to give me any rights. Merely by showing them a birth registration certificate, I am not going to get any political right, I am not going to get any civil right, what a normal Portuguese citizen will get. So therefore, if this registration of birth in Portugal does not make me a citizen by virtue of their law. I cannot be held to be a citizen within the meaning of Section 9 of the Citizenship Act. If you look at it from another perspective, you see the Portuguese Constitution speaks about rights of Portuguese citizens. It does not speak about rights of Portuguese nationals. Whereas the Nationality Act speaks about only nationals under which this birth registration is done. So therefore, even under the Portuguese law, there is a difference between Portuguese national and Portuguese citizen. Rights under the Constitution are given only to Portuguese citizens and not to nationals. So therefore, if let us assume for this debate that once we register our birth, it amounts to acquiring Portuguese nationality. Whether this acquiring Portuguese nationality would be within the meaning of Section 9 to say that yes, Portuguese nationality also comes under citizenship, this is clearly not made out under Section 9. If they wanted to say this, just like the Citizenship Order of 1962 says that there has to be a nationality or citizenship, how they said you have to give a declaration that you want to retain your nationality or citizenship. In this Section 9 also this word nationality was required. We said actually the section should have read, if somebody acquires voluntarily the citizenship or nationality of another country, then the Indian citizenship will get terminated. So in view of this, the fact that the Section 9 does not speak about the status of nationality, speak only about the status of citizenship, and acquiring or registering of birth only you acquire nationality and you don't acquire citizenship. On this itself, my first contention is that our Indian citizenship will not get terminated. The second is, as per Section 9 again, which terminates Indian citizenship, the words are very clear. The acquiring of foreign citizenship has to be, now this is besides what I have argued, the acquiring of foreign citizenship has to be voluntary. Now what is voluntary? Voluntary is when you consciously do something. When you intend to do something, it has to be out of your own free will, out of your own free volition. You have to exercise your right to get something, and in that you have to, out of your own free will, if you get it, it would be called voluntary. Now, under the after the Citizenship Act, the state government, the central government has also framed citizenship rules. And who decides under Section 9 whether a citizen has taken this citizenship voluntary and whether the citizenship has been terminated is the central government as per Rule 40 of the citizenship rules. And in the process, now the central government decides whether he has taken voluntary, whether the citizenship has been terminated. What are the rules of procedure? These rules of procedure are also laid down in Schedule 3 of the rules. And what the rule says, my colleague has already actually spoken about some of them. The rules say that if it appears to the state government, appears to the central government that a citizen has obtained a citizenship of a foreign country voluntarily, then he should be called upon by the central government to explain whether it was voluntary or involuntary. So therefore, first of all, this process has to be implemented. And as I said, the first submission, it is only in the event a citizen obtains citizenship and not nationality that the central government could go ahead and say, now come on, explain, you have obtained this citizenship, kindly explain whether it was voluntary or not voluntary. Now the central government in this process also takes into consideration the various aspects, has to take into consideration, and these are rules laid down. Now one of the aspects which the central government would consider to find out whether this citizen really had an intention to obtain or he had done it voluntarily is whether he has traveled out of the country, made the other country his permanent place of residence, whether he has actually migrated there and he started living there. You know, these facts would go to show the intention. And these are rules which are there in Schedule 3. Now, as my colleague has already told you, having a passport, now the rules say that if you after 1961 you continue to hold a Portuguese passport, there is conclusive presumption that you are a Portuguese national. If you still hold a passport, besides that rule, there's another rule which says that if you hold a passport of another country, again you are deemed to be the citizen of the country, or there is a conclusive presumption that you are a citizen of that country. Now there is no rule in that. In the citizen rules, we say that birth registration is conclusive presumption of acquiring citizenship of another country. It only speaks about passport. Now, passport is not a topic of today's debate. So let us stick to this birth registration. Thereafter, so the rules itself show that before mere birth registration will not suffice to terminate citizenship, the central government has to call upon, show cause to the citizen why it should not be terminated, give an opportunity to the citizen, and quasi-judicial inquiry has to be conducted. The citizen has to be given an opportunity to present all the facts whereby he can show that it was involuntary. Now this matter came up before the Supreme Court in the year 1965, where again a Pakistani national came to India with a Pakistani passport, and he was sought to be deported in 1961-65. The judgment, the name of the petitioner there was MD Ayub Khan. Now, he was sought to be deported. What the Supreme Court said was, the court directly you cannot say that because a person holds a passport of a foreign country, he should be deported. The central government has to call upon him, conduct an inquiry, decide whether this passport was taken voluntary or not voluntary. In that petition, the petitioner succeeded to show that this passport was actually obtained by him involuntarily, because his argument in that case was that he went to Pakistan at a time of migration or for some other reason, and to come back to India, which he considered to be his permanent residence, he was compelled to take a Portuguese passport, a Pakistani passport. And Supreme Court upheld that contention, saying that he couldn't come back to his place of residence into India unless he had this Pakistani passport, and therefore he did not do it out of his own will as such, but it was because of his compulsion. And Supreme Court clearly makes out, clearly lays down several things in the course of the judgment. We say that if a passport, now in this particular case, let us take the case of birth registration. We will connect it to that. If in that case it said if the passport was obtained by way of fear, fraud, misrepresentation, compulsion, duress, undue influence, all this which would impede or vitiate free volition, then it cannot be said to be done voluntarily. And similar view again has been later taken out by Jammu and Kashmir High Court, and our own Bombay High Court has decided this matter in the year 1977. And Bombay High Court clearly says that
5 minutes.
Alright. Bombay High Court clearly says that it is this list which is given by the Supreme Court to show that it was not taken voluntarily is not exhaustive list. You can add many other things to it to show that, to prove to the central government that it was not done voluntarily. There are several judgments nowadays. I mean, this is settled law that you cannot be deported out of the country merely because you even have a foreign passport. So here in this particular case, if we apply the same principle over here, my contention is that even if you assume somebody's birth is registered in Portugal, unless the central government does not give him an opportunity to state his case, does not conduct an inquiry, does not come to the conclusion that it was voluntarily taken, there cannot be a termination of Indian citizenship. For termination of Indian citizenship, this inquiry and this order of the central government has to be there first. And what I'm trying to say is, it cannot be done, it cannot be, termination of citizenship, as I said, cannot be automatic. Citizen will have to be called upon to give his point of view, how he has done. Like there are several cases I know where an aged father, or maybe a father who is born after 1961, for the benefit of somebody else, registers his birth. He is compelled by his parents maybe to register a birth, or a father who has not inscribed his birth. I'm not trying to. I'm trying to only add to the arguments of my colleague, Advocate Gracious. Somebody who has not, let us say a person was born prior to 1961, registers his birth again. I'm not going into technical matters, but it could be, let us assume that birth registration itself amounts to, let us say, acquiring Portuguese nationality. But whether that particular person had registered at birth voluntary or not has to be examined. Because there are so many cases where we've seen parents register their births so that the children get the benefits. Because without their births getting registered, the children can't register their birth. So therefore, the voluntary nature, whether that, because so many aged people are there in Goa whose births are registered now, inscribed now, but who have never traveled to Portugal and who have no intention to travel, but they were compelled probably by their children to register their birth. So therefore, so many defenses are available, so many things are available. It is not very easy to say that the moment your birth is registered in Portugal, your Indian citizenship gets terminated. This is all I have to say. Thank you.